What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for another tier list. Here we have starting quarterbacks and potential starting quarterbacks in 2021 for the NFL, and I'm going to be ranking them from S through F tier. Essentially, the criteria is going to be how well I think they're going to play this season. You know, stats are a big component, but it's also clutch ability and how you bring your team to winning games. Now, let's get into it. The first quarterback being Mac Jones, and I have him in the D tier. We really do not know a lot about him from Alabama. His one season was very good, but he was throwing to open guys, so I think we will learn a lot about him this season, but D tier is probably good for him there. Next, we have Cam Newton, also at the D tier, and that might surprise a few people after his Carolina days, but really, he had 8 touchdowns the entire 2020 regular season. That is deserving of D tier, if not F tier, but I have a little more respect for Cam than putting him in the F tier. But I think D tier is good for him after an abysmal season. Next, we go to Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's deserving of a C tier. I see a lot of upside for him, but I also recognize he is a very raw prospect. You know, he has a lot of good attributes, but only started 17 games, and those were in the FCS with North Dakota State. So, see the upside, but he's only 20 years old, so I think C tier is good for him there. Next, I have Jimmy Garoppolo in the B tier. I know this might surprise a few people, but he has over a 75% win percentage when starting in the NFL. That is an absolutely insane statistic. And I know a lot of people want to rag on him because of that Super Bowl 54 performance. But those people were not believing in him before. And even if he makes the throw to Emmanuel Sanders, they would not be believing in him. I think if he has a good supporting cast, he is a great quarterback in this league. And he will win you a lot of games as conveyed by his winning percentage as a starter. So I think B tier is good for him there. Next, we have Jalen Hurts, who I have in the D tier. I just do not think he's a long-term starting quarterback in this league. I do not see a lot in him. He had one good game against the Saints, but other than that, the last 3 games were kind of lackluster. I just do not think he is a good enough thrower of the football to be a long-term starting quarterback in this league, so I think D tier is good for him there. Next, we go on to Aaron Rodgers. Nothing other than S tier will be accepted here. MVP. Carried his team to the 1 seed in the NFC. They probably should have won that NFC championship game and advanced to the Super Bowl, but that is what it is. Probably was not on him that they didn't get there. I mean, he can really just make any play, and he's as clutch as it gets. So I think Rodgers in the S tier is a no-brainer. Then we have Jordan Love as backup, and I think he's quite opposite, and he gets the F tier. I just don't see a lot in him. I did not really like him as a Utah State prospect, and I think it was a big reach by the Packers to get him in that 2020 first round. A lot of tumultuous reports about him in camp. Don't really know what to make of those, but I think he is in the F tier of this tier list rankings. He is way below these other quarterbacks on this list. Then we go to Derek Carr, and I think he's deserving of a C tier ranking. He's an average starting quarterback in this league. I think he deserves a starting job. It's not his fault that the Raiders stink. It's really just the defense. He puts up good stats. He had great performances last year in a few games. He just cannot put the team on his back. He's only a C tier quarterback, so I think that's appropriate there. Next, we have another C tier quarterback for me. Give me Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's average. He's getting up there in age. He probably was above this a few years ago, but his arm is starting to wear down. He already had elbow surgery a couple years ago, so I think C tier is good for him. He's certainly not bum, but he's not what he used to be, so I think C tier is good for him there. Next, we have an elite quarterback in Russell Wilson. I think he's deserving of the S tier. He has straight up carried the Seahawks the last few seasons on his back to get to the playoffs. So any disrespect will not be tolerated. I have Wilson in the S tier. Next, we have Drew Lock in the D tier for me. I think he is a bomb. I really do not think that he is a good starting quarterback. I think he's way overrated by some people. And I think come the end of 2020, he's not going to be starting for the Broncos. And they are not going to have a lot of success under him. And then we have Teddy Bridgewater, also in Denver. I have him as well in the D tier. He's just not explosive enough, not dynamic enough to win a lot of games at the starting quarterback position. So that is why he is there. Next, we have Kirk Cousins, and I have him in the B tier. A lot of people will say, the primetime performances, the failures when everyone is watching. But I really just look at the overall resume and say that he is a pretty good, probably above average starting quarterback within this league. He has a lot of talent around him, and he makes the most out of it. The Vikings score a lot of points every single year, and he has made the playoffs a few times. And really, if he's not on primetime, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's made a couple of Pro Bowls. So I don't think the disrespect coming at him in all ways is that much warranted. So I think B tier is a pretty appropriate position for him. Next, we go to Andy Dalton, and I really just think he is a D tier quarterback for me. I mean, you saw last season after Dak Prescott goes down, the Cowboys can't win a game. And I really saw no difference from Ben DiNucci to Andy Dalton last season anyway. I mean, they were all terrible in leading the Cowboys. And the Cowboys had a lot of weapons on that offense. So he really did not have many excuses for that poor performance last year. I do not think he's going to have a good year this year. Therefore, he is deserving of his D tier position. Next, we go to Justin Fields, also in Chicago, and I have him in the C tier. He's in that Trey Lance category where he's pretty raw. He had some great performances last year, a la the Clemson game, but also some head scratchers like the Northwestern and Indiana games. So we do not know what we're going to get here really, but there is a lot of upside there, and I think he could be very good if the Bears put him in this season. So I think C tier is good for him. Then we go to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, he's just the epitome of a gunslinger, and he's a pretty decent one at that. At this point in his career, I'll give him C tier. I think he will be the football team's starting quarterback this year, and I think he might lead them to the playoffs, quite honestly. He will throw you into some games with a few 4-touchdown performances, but then he will have some 5-interception games where you just hate him. It's either Fitzmagic or Fitztragic, and I think that balances him out to be a C tier quarterback. A good level starting quarterback, but not someone who can carry a team consistently. Next, we go to Taylor Heineke, and I know a lot of people are high on him. I personally am not. I'll give him an F tier position. I really just do not see him as a starting quarterback in this league. I mean, just look at his contract. I think he's not even making $10 million. For a quarterback in this league, that really just indicates that you're not thought of as a starting quarterback. I think Fitzpatrick will lead the team. I doubt we'll see a lot more out of Heineke. His performance in the wildcard game against the Bucs was legendary, but let's be honest, I don't think he is a starter in this league. Next, we have Tom Brady, and I see him as being in the A tier. Some people will argue that he's in the S tier, but I just do not think he's in the prime of his career anymore. I don't see him as having as much talent as, say, Rodgers or Wilson or quarterbacks in the S tier, but his clutch ability certainly will not be questioned, and his team success and carrying a team will not be questioned either. So I think A tier is a good position for him. Next, we have Tua Tagovailoa, and a bit surprising here, but I'm going to put him in the F tier. I really just do not think he is a starting quarterback in this league. I think he's going to be exposed this season. He just has a weak arm, and generally in the NFL, you can tell pretty quickly if someone's arm doesn't translate to the league. And he's not a very mobile quarterback. He's been injured a lot, so I just do not see him as having a good future in this league. So I think he's going in the F tier for me. I mean, just look at that Bills start. Week 17 last year just speaks for itself. Next, we have the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. He's getting the S tier. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you're arguing that he's anything other than the S tier, then you're just ludicrous. So give me S tier for him. Then we have Daniel Jones, and a pretty funny picture here that I didn't make. The person who made the tier list made of him tripping in that Eagles game. But I'm putting him in the D tier. I'm not sold on him. This is a make-or-break season for Danny Dimes. I don't even know how he got that nickname, and he definitely is not deserving of it. But we'll see what we get. He has not had a lot of success for New York thus far, but he's surrounded with a bunch of weapons, and I do not think he's going to make the most out of it. Therefore, he is a D-tier quarterback for me. Next, we have Baker Mayfield, and I see him as an average starting quarterback in this league. I see him as being around the talent of Derek Carr and Ben Roethlisberger, and I think he does have some room for improvement. He can get there. He's generally a young quarterback. This is only his 4th season in the NFL. He can get better, but at this point, I see him as being an average starting quarterback. Then we have Lamar Jackson, who is controversial. Some people calling him a running back. Some people heralding him as one of the NFL's best. I have him somewhere in the middle. I have him at the A tier. I recognize his talent. He's an MVP. And some people are trying to say that the NFL has figured him out. I'm here to tell you that they have not. I mean, his elusiveness and his athleticism will give him a starting job within this league for so many years to come. And I just think his throwing is only getting better. He definitely has a lot of room for growth there, and that's why he's not in the S tier. But I think at his age currently, still very young, I'm going to give him a respectable A tier at this point. Next, we have another electric starting quarterback. We have Josh Allen, and some people will argue he goes S tier. I say he goes in the front of the A tier. I just do not think he is that elite that he goes in the S tier. I was sold on him at the end of the regular season, but then all of that juice kind of went away in the playoffs, where he just had some head scratchers. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, but that was a terrible performance, and he didn't perform particularly well against the Ravens or the Colts, for that matter, other games in the playoffs. So he's definitely going to have to prove some things, but he has established that he is a great starting quarterback within this league. Next, we have Kyler Murray, and I'm going to be putting him in the front of the B tier. He is a great dynamic threat, two-way threat with his arm, with his legs, but he's going to have to be a bit more consistent if he wants to be in the S or the A tier for me. So I think at this point, 2 years into his career, hasn't even made the playoffs yet. Let's slow the brakes. Let's make him earn it before he gets all of our respect in the S or the A tier. Next, we have Jameis Winston, and I have him going in the C tier. I think he's just around the ability of the other average starting quarterbacks in the C tier. We'll see what he has after his LASIK. Maybe he's a completely new quarterback under the tutelage of Drew Brees this last year. But I think really if he gets the interceptions out of his game, he's going to be a decent level starting quarterback in this league. Next, we have also in New Orleans, Taysom Hill, and I really just do not see him as being a starting quarterback in the league, which is why I give him a D tier. I mean, he's always going to be valuable in coming on the field in these timely situations where they need a dual threat guy, but I just do not think you're going to run him out and he's going to be your starting quarterback for an entire NFL regular season. So give me D tier for him. Next, we have Zach Wilson of the New York Jets. He's getting the back of the C tier. I don't really know what to make out of him. I watched a lot of him at BYU, and I don't know why he jumped all the way up to the number 2 pick. I always recognized that he was a great prospect. His arm talent is uncanny. But, I mean, I don't know why the Jets were so sold on him to take him at number 2. We'll see what he has this year. Jets' offense seems to be a little bit better, and they don't have Adam Gase. But I don't think he's going to be a world beater. I think, at best, probably just an average starting quarterback in his rookie season. Next, we have Carson Wentz, and I think this is a bounce-back season for him in Indianapolis. He is set up for success. Under Frank Reich, he had a bond with him in Philadelphia. He doesn't have to do the most with it. He can lay off the dumb mistakes. He can hand it off to Jonathan Taylor when he wants, and he also has some great weapons on the outside. So I don't think he's going to return back to his MVP form quite yet. as in 2017, but I definitely think he will bounce back and be an above-average starting quarterback in the league and lead the Colts to some success in 2021. Next, we have Jared Goff, and I do think he is a starter in this league. I'll give him the front of the D tier. The lines certainly aren't going to be good with him as a starting quarterback, but they weren't good with Matthew Stafford, who's obviously much better than Jared Goff. I mean, you see what Sean McVay thought about Goff with him not even starting in the playoffs, even when he was generally healthy enough to play. So I really think he is probably a below-average starter at this point, and do not think he will have a successful season this year, which is why he is worthy of the D tier. Next, we have the number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, and he is getting the back of the B tier for me. I think this will surprise a few people that I'm putting him up this far, but he is a generational talent. I mean, I think he would have been a top 3 pick, maybe even the first overall pick after his first year in college at Clemson. So I think the talent just speaks for itself. Everyone recognizes that he does have the potential to be one of the great starting quarterbacks in this league in due time. And I even think in his rookie season, you saw what Justin Herbert did last year. I mean, these rookie quarterbacks can come into the league and have success early. So I think B tier is definitely good for him. Next, we have Sam Darnold, who is now on the Panthers, and some people might say he is a below-average starting quarterback in this league. I personally think he's deserving the C tier. I think he's been a bit screwed over by having Adam Gase as his coach and offensive coordinator these past few years. I think it kind of ruined him, but I think under Matt Rule he will be much better. I do not think he will be transformed into an excellent starting quarterback within 1 year, but I do think that he will eliminate a lot of the mistakes and be kind of a game manager, make a few throws to some great weapons, and I think that he will do a good job for the Panthers this season in his first year, so give me C tier there. Next, we have Matt Ryan. I have him also in the C tier. At this point, I just see him as an average starter in this league. I kind of see him in the Derek Carr light, where they both had excellent 2016 seasons. Matt Ryan probably a bit better, but he did have Kyle Shanahan that year. But then the past few years, the team's success just hasn't been there, and that's not entirely on Matt Ryan, just as it's not entirely on Derek Carr. Their average starting quarterbacks can't carry a team on their back, especially if it's a subpar team, but they will get their stats, and they will look pretty respectable. So I think C tier is pretty fair there. Also something to note with Matt Ryan, he's aging, and I don't know how long he's going to be in Atlanta for, but I think he will definitely have a decent season this year. Next, we have Matthew Stafford, and he gets an A tier for me. I think he's probably a fringe elite quarterback. That's why I have him at the end of the A tier, but McVay definitely seems sold on him, so I will buy his word there. Stafford, we don't really know what we're going to get because he's been cooped up in Detroit for all those years. He's definitely frustrated with the team over there. But we'll see how he translates in LA this year. I think he will have a big year. Definitely won't be an MVP type season for me, in my opinion. But I do think he is an A-tier quarterback. The talent and the arm talent are certainly there. Next, we have Joe Burrow, and I will put him in the B tier. His mobility is certainly going to be in question after that devastating injury last year. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he will bounce back to as good as he was and probably better this year in his sophomore season in the NFL. So I think B tier is quality there. I think him with the revamped Bengals offense will be pretty good in the 2021 season. Next, we have Desean Watson, and we really do not know if he's even going to play this season, what team he's going to be on. But what I do know is he is a great starting quarterback in this league. He's definitely deserving of the A tier, in my opinion. He is one of the great young starting quarterbacks in this league. I mean, he really has it all. His mobility is definitely excellent, and he does have some great arm talent. Next, we have Tyrod Taylor, who is in Houston this year, probably going to be the starter. He gets a D tier for me. I mean, He doesn't do anything special. He's probably a below average starting quarterback in this league. He's not going to throw away games, but I just do not think he is a decent starting quarterback. Definitely not who you'd want to be starting quarterback for your team. So give me D tier there. Next, we have Justin Herbert, and he gets B tier for me. I know a lot of people want to dub him as the next best starting quarterback in the league and put him in the S or A tier. I like him as much as the next guy, but I think we have to let him earn it this season, which brings us to our final quarterback in this NFL 2021 tier list, and it is Dak Prescott, and he's going to be put in the B tier for me. Now, obviously, we don't know about his athleticism this year after that devastating ankle injury, but I'm going to put him in that Joe Burrow place where I think he's going to be pretty good after an injury, going to find his way, and by the end of the regular season, he's going to be an above-average starting quarterback, and the Cowboys will be in playoff contention with a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. So with that being said, let me know what you guys thought of my quarterback tier list here. I know there's going to be a lot of disagreements. I mean, I ranked probably about 40 quarterbacks here, so you're bound to disagree with one. Let me know which quarterback you thought I was the most wrong on. I'd like to see that in the comments. Make sure to like the video, and I will see you all in the next one.